Hi guys, bear with me. This is my first broadcast. I'm new to YouTube, but however, I feel as if our stories are the light that will lead other people out of the darkness. And I don't believe it's sitting on a story, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself in this broadcast, and I will keep it raw. I will give a lot of information, and some of it will be about all of it will be about my personal life experiences, things that I've gone through, things that I've been exposed to. So just brace yourself and please bear with me. These videos will not be perfect, but they will be worth it. I'm going to give you information on the development of a codependent as well as a narcissist, and basically how you almost veer over to either side depending on whether you decide to be a victim or a victor dealing with the situation. I feel like throughout our community, either you fall in the category of being a codependent or a narcissist or someone with a personality disorder. Excuse me, I got tongue tied there. You fall into those two categories, and I feel like it's healthy for people that have good energy to, mate and find other people with good energy versus finding people that are not so in a good place and trying to pull them into your world, because oftentimes these people, they do like a sneak attack, so they drag you down into their world when you think that you're stronger in the beginning to push them and pull them up into your world. Narcissistic, anti-personality disorder, sociopaths and psychopaths, majority of them have the same thing in common, as well as codependents. You would be surprised. Codependents also have a lot in common with people with personality disorders, and that's what causes them to be a codependent, is because basically they can relate to the hurt and the severity of what this person is experiencing. The only difference is the codependent has found more useful resources and more positive way to deal with the illness, or to deal with it becoming an illness, excuse me, because codependents are not ill, but you can. Some of them are actually addicted to narcissistic behavior, and basically they end up becoming addicted to the abuse and the manipulation tactics. They oftentimes put themselves in the position to actually give off more supply to that narcissist. But when you first come in contact with a narcissist, it's normally off of compassion and empathy, because you can relate to what they've gone through. And this is what I'm understanding, now as an adult, that my childhood played a major part in some of the diabolical relationships that I was connected to growing up, as well as in my adulthood, and how it hit, basically almost took me under. So for the most part, if you didn't fold, bow down to, or receive an injury at a young age or while growing up based off of abuse in some type of way, shape, or form, 9 times out of 10, the spirit of the narcissistic or manipulation or anti the anti-personality disorder or psychopath, sociopath, whatever the spirit may be, it almost like it stalks you while you're an adult through other people, and you sympathize with these people and you look at them as if they're innocent and helpless, because you see yourself as a child or a teenager in that person wanting help, and you want to be that bridge. You want to get, stand in that gap and pull them out of where they're at, but you don't understand that they're really sick, and in some cases the issues that they're battling with will actually pull you under versus you pulling them out of it. A narcissist or a person with a personality disorder, they do not mind, drowning their victims in sorrow while they keep their head afloat to stay above water. This is the way that they move. And I became a codependent based off of my upbringing. My mother is from Central America, and she is Hispanic, and my father is a vet. He's from the States, and they both have ties, before I was born, with craft work and sorcery and, magic, things to that sort. However, in the States, my mom, she practiced a little bit, and she was kind of a wild child. In Central America and some of those countries, prostitution is legalized. So she did a little bit of that. And this is only an introduction. I just want to give you guys a feel of what you'll be hearing throughout these broadcasts. She dealt with a lot of that while being in the States, when coming to the States after my father and her divorced. They divorced, and he actually left the household, I believe, the same week I was brought home from the hospital. So I never really had a close relationship with him. And I think she received furthermore injury to herself emotionally and mentally after the separation, because she went from being a military wife to pretty much being in government housing. And I was pretty much raised poor. We did fine later on in my life, but in the beginning stages, it was kind of rough. But I'm going to get into a lot of that. As I stated before, please, bear with me. These videos won't be perfect, but they'll be worth it. I am just going to give you like an introduction right now, briefly. But basically, growing up with my mother, we were pretty much raised as if we were children and we were to be seen and not heard. So our opinions did not matter. My mother's been married 9 times, and she could care less about our opinions of her husbands. In fact, she would tell us, constantly that our opinions and what we said and how we felt about her marriage did not matter. And these were marriages after marriages after marriages. It was, like I said, about 9. And we were pretty much put in a position where we had to live with these men that we did not know, men that did not like us. My mom has always been very independent, so she normally took care of a lot of her men. They pretty much could not take care of themselves. But I feel like she fed off of that as a control mechanism, because she's very controlling. And anything she cannot control, she belittles it, she degrades it, she down talks it. She will try to trick you into feeling like you're stupid, you're dumb. It's all manipulation, it's all control. We grew up basically being critiqued, criticized. I was always darker. Like I said, my family is half Hispanic, and so I was the darkest one, and I would, be talked about. And this was coming solely from my mother, about my skin complexion and how, she pretty much tried to get me to bleach my skin. My hair would tighten up after I would swim, and she would talk about that. My legs were very skinny, and I wanted to wear dresses because what little girl doesn't? But I was told how awkward I looked in dresses and how skinny my legs were and how I was going to get teased at school. And that was basically a spinoff of me confiding in her and telling her, the way I was being talked about or laughed at school. So instead of being nurtured and me being told that I was pretty, no, it was actually used against me. So that's pretty much how it was. So my mother and I, it's safe to say, never really had a good relationship either, because I could never fully trust her to open up and tell her things, which is why I ended up in counseling as an adult, because I was like losing it and I needed someone to speak to. And then the African American culture, oftentimes they don't really promote counseling and things of that such. Like, they don't. A lot of the things that I'm learning right now is based off of YouTube videos, me reading actual information from psychologists, and getting, an understanding of what I'm going through and what I've been going through, and how my childhood set the tone for the emotional, physical, and mental abuse that I've endured, as an adult, for the most part. I'm sorry, guys, I get tongue-tied a lot. Just bear with me. But I've dealt with several relationships. I've, had a child by a sociopath. I've dealt with a narcissist. So I have, a good insight, and I feel like my story will help somebody else in the midst of what they're going through. I just want to tell you guys that you are always bearing fruit, whether it's good fruit and bad fruit. And this is what makes codependents identify with narcissism, people with anti-personality disorder. If you were abused as a child, or if you were talked down to as a child, or if you were abandoned as a child, oftentimes you find your friends and your mates based off of what you're familiar with, and pretty much, you based off of the fact that you guys have some things in common, and that you can pretty much identify and understand where they're coming from. But what you have to understand is, with every situation, there's victims and there's victors. Some people have conquered their demons, and some people are possessed by them. So you can't base friendships and relationships off of the similarities that you guys may have in the past, because that person might be sick from that situation while you have the victory over that situation. I'm about to end this introduction shortly, but I will definitely tell you guys, I want to thank God in the process of this. I'm definitely a spiritual person, because it was only him and only him that was in my corner throughout all of these things, that was keeping me afloat and basically letting me know that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, in spite of what was said and spoken into my life. And this is why I was not a victim of this is why I was not, and I still am not, a victim of any type of mental illnesses, narcissistic abuse, antisocial disorder, socio or psychopath, because I've always had God in the corner, and he has always kept me stable in mind, body, and spirit. And so I just want to thank him for that. And I want to tell you guys that that is definitely, if you can't find anyone else, I mean, I would definitely first suggest that, you know, as that foundation. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't know him, get to know him, because whether you're a codependent, even if there's narcissists out there or anyone that's battling with a personality disorder, like, there is hope and deliverance. He is that source.